So continuing our conversation of slope and rate of change for a linear function, sometimes we are not given the actual graph, so we can't just count rise over run. Or sometimes it's not exact whole numbers. So here is the slope formula that we'll need to know. M is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So you'll notice that the slope formula is used to find the slope between 2 points, x and y, and we're using that little sub 1, that little subscript down below the letter to let us know that this is the first point, the x and y coordinate, and this is the x and y coordinate for the second point. Okay, so we're going to take the second y value and subtract the first one, and then the second x value and subtract the first one. Okay, so if it helps you, it may be a good idea here to remember that this is x sub 1 and x sub 2, or sorry, y sub 1, this is x sub 2 and y sub 2. Okay, so that means in our formula here, we would do 3, which is our y sub 2, minus 1, divided by 4 minus 1. And so we would simplify 2 over 3, and that's in simplest form. So that's going to be to find our slope. Now remember that we do always want to simplify our answer. We want to bring it down to its simplest form as a fraction. If it is more than or greater than 1, we can use an improper fraction. You don't need to change it to a mixed number. Improper fraction is perfectly fine. Alright, on number 3 here. So here's our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. Here's our x sub 2 and our y sub 2. So I'm going to take this negative 5, and I'm going to subtract 5. And I'm going to take the negative 8, and I'm going to subtract a negative 4. It helps to have these in parentheses because of this negative right here. Here I'm going to end up with a negative 10 on top. And on the bottom, I'm going to end up with a negative 4 because this becomes a positive plus a positive 4. And when we simplify that, it simplifies to 5 over 2. Okay, and it becomes positive because the negative divided by negative is a positive, so it becomes positive 5 halves. The next rate of change we have is 5 over 9 and 3 ninths. So we're going to take the second y value and subtract the first. And then we're going to take the second x value and subtract the first. So we end up with 0 on top, negative 2 on the bottom, and any 0 divided by anything is 0. So that's going to be our slope for this one. Number 7, continuing that, we're going to take the second y value 3 and subtract the first. And then we're going to take the second y value the 2 and subtract this first one. And so we end up here with negative 6, and here we have 3. Which is going to simplify to a negative 2 slope. Okay, so just this simple formula that we're going to plug these values into and simplify. That's all that we're doing for this this step. All right, here we're going to take this 5 and subtract the 6, and we're going to take the 6 and subtract the 5. We end up with negative 1 and a positive 1, which simplifies to negative 1. So a couple more, or at least one more example here. I'm going to take that negative 2 and subtract that negative 9, okay, and I'm going to divide that by 3 minus 5. And so negative 2 plus 9 is going to give me a positive 7 on top, and then negative 2 on the bottom, okay, which we can simplify as just negative 7 halves. That's going to be our slope. Now, sometimes you have to complete the ordered pairs using a given slope. And sometimes we have part of the information, but not all of the information. And so here, the slope is given to us. It's negative 4/5. We're also given the second y value, or the first y value, but not the second one. And then we have the 2x values. So I can simplify this. I end up with, let's see, negative 4/5 is equal to y minus 6 over 10. And I can cross multiply and do a proportion here. So I end up with negative 4 times 10 is equal to 5 times y minus 6. So negative 40 is equal to 5y minus 30. Add the 30 over here and divide by 5. And so I find out that y was equal to negative 2. So our second point here was 5, negative 2. Okay, so sometimes we can kind of use this information to kind of work backwards when necessary. So same process, looking at number 3 here, or number 13 here, we're missing the second x value here. So we're going to start with plugging in our slope into the equation. Remember our equation here is m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So my m is 2, I have my y value of 6 minus the negative 2 divided by x minus negative 3. And I'm going to kind of simplify this a little bit. So I end up with 2 is equal to 8 over x plus 3. And then I can cross multiply, even though it doesn't look like I have a proportion. Remember that any whole number is over 1. So I can multiply this. I get 2x plus 6 is equal to 8. Okay, remember that 2 has to be multiplied by the x and the 3. I skipped that distributive step, writing it out, but it still has to be done. And then I'm going to subtract the 6, and I get 2x is equal to 2, and I'm going to divide by the 2, and I get x is equal to 1. So the other order pair here was 1, 6. Alright, same process, number 15. Our slope here was negative 9 over 2. We're missing that second y value, minus the negative 4, negative 5 minus negative 3, and I'm going to simplify the best that I can. So negative 9 over 2 is equal to y plus 4 over negative 2, and then I can cross multiply. Okay, I'm going to put that negative with the 9, and I end up with 18 is equal to 2y plus 8, subtract the 8, divide by the 2, and I find that y was equal to 5. So this point up here was negative 5, positive 5. Okay, 2 more examples. Let's run through these and just make sure we understand how this works. So again, the slope is negative 4 on this one. We have negative 7. We don't have the other y value. We have 1 and then negative 3. And we're going to simplify the best that we can. Remember, it's going to be negative 4 over 1, negative 7 minus y, and down here we end up with a positive 4. So when we cross multiply, we have negative 16 is equal to negative 7 minus y. We'll add the 7 over here, end up with negative 9 is equal to negative y. And remember, in this case, sometimes it's nice to just multiply everything by negative 1 to get rid of that negative y. So I end up with a positive y and a positive 9. Okay? And then the last and final one, 3/4. And then I have 5 minus the y and 0 minus the 4. Okay, remember this is x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, and y sub 2. So I plugged in the 5, subtracted the y, plugged in the 0, subtracted the 4. Okay, so I'm going to simplify this again. 5 minus y over negative 4, and we're going to cross multiply. So I get negative 12, 20 minus 4y, subtract that 20, divide by the negative 4, and I get a positive 8 for that y value. Okay, so just kind of working backwards, still using the same information that I started with. Just when we're given different information, we can still use the same formula to find the pieces that we're missing. And so that's kind of the basics for slope and rate of change for a linear function.